Hi everyone, my name is Byron Dixon. I'm the CEO of Microfresh International. It's actually my birthday today and I'm away in New York. So if you can see a hungover look, honestly, I didn't have too much to drink last night. So just to give you the Microfresh story, the short background is I went to a school in Leicester. Not a very good school. Well, it was a pretty tough school, but I could do chemistry. So I managed to graduate with an O-level in chemistry and an A-level. And I went through, I got a job in Loughborough working with a leather chemicals company. After 10 years or so, I was headhunted to Echo Shoes in Denmark. I moved to Denmark, which was great fun. A lot of tax, very dark winters, and very cold. So I came back to England in the mid-2000s, early 2000s, and started my own business, Corium Solutions Limited, which was about selling leather finishes back to tanneries and shoe factories around the world through the contacts that I'd made. Great fun. Did a bit of traveling again, meeting old friends, selling the products. And then I remembered that Echo's shoes used to go moldy when they were made in Asia and shipped to the West. So I thought, if I formulate a product that stops mold growing on leather, maybe I can get some sales. So I formulated this product, called it Microfresh, wanted it to be non-irritant, a simple treatment you apply to leather, stops it going moldy when it gets moist and damp in transit. Nothing really happened for a couple of years. That was about 2007. And then the retailers started calling us and said, can we get your product? Because the product that we have currently to stop leather going moldy is irritant and it's causing burns. So if anybody's got a phone handy, which most people do these days, if you Google the toxic sofa scandal, which does sound a lot worse than it was actually quite a big event back in about 2008. And some huge retailers got sued because their sofas were burning people's skin. And there were some horrendous stories of babies developing eczema and also people with previous conditions, in some cases going to hospital, being hospitalized, getting very ill, and in some cases dying. So we then had a product to stop mold growing on leather. And about 2008, in the early stage of my business, when you're doing everything yourself, you're answering the phone, you're delivering goods, you're trying to do the books, I managed to take a little bit of time out because I attended an event organised by the University of Leicester. And I thought, okay, it'll give me a break from all this everyday humdrum, boring life. So I went along to this event and I met a lady called Andrew Trevidi, who started talking to me about things that I'd never encountered before, things like tests and funding and validity. And she said, look, Byron, your product sounds quite interesting. Maybe we can do some tests. We've got ERDF funding and we can validate it. So Andrew introduced me to the University of Leicester and the facilities that you have and the people, more to the point. And that was in 2008. Through Andrew, we put Microfresh on some little pieces of suede and leather and textiles, which we'd never done before. And the university did some tests, proper tests, because although I'm a chemist, I didn't have the facilities or the money or the staff to do proper scientific analysis. So that was done with the University of Leicester. Andrew came back, introduced me to a lady called Kat Pashley, Dr. Kat Pashley, I should say, or maybe Professor Kat Pashley, and Professor Wardlaw, who then said, maybe your product, if it stops mold, it could have some massive implications for healthcare, because there's a disease where mold grows inside the alveoli of people's lungs. And it costs the NHS a fortune to clean these lungs out, clean the alveoli out. So Professor Wardlaw was going to look at it, slowing down the growth of mold in the lungs. Unfortunately, when he then said a clinical trial is about £500,000, well, I didn't have £500,000. So that quickly fell down. But it did open my eyes to the possibilities of what we can do as a business. Professor Kat Pashley and Andrew came back and said, what about bacteria? So again, I just had a product that stopped mold growing on leather. I didn't know what bacteria was. So we tested some bacteria. Andrew said, she said, I'll introduce you to some people. And they came back and said, we'll test it on Staphylococcus aureus, which meant nothing to me, and E. coli, 1 gram negative and 1 gram positive. So they came back and said, it absolutely works. It stops the growth of bacteria. Like Microfresh on a surface means bacteria cannot grow. And then they told me that Staphylococcus aureus was the precursor to what was at the time known as MRSA. So we tested it on MRSA and it worked. So we realized then that we had a product that can stop these nasty bacteria growing, which was huge. And again, in textiles. The third stage was another thing I didn't realize, again, through working in the university, through working with people like, as I've already mentioned, they said, you do know odors are caused by bacteria. I said, no, I didn't know that. So I thought, have I really got a product that can stop things from smelling? They went through the science of how bacteria breaks down sweat and it gives off the gases, which is the body odor. So I just started playing football for the University of Leicester. And so they said, look, let's test it. So we tested it on our football kit. We treated the right feet, the socks and the shoes with Microfresh. And after 3 months, the right feet didn't smell at all and the left feet stunk like hell. You know, if you think of guys playing football, it stinks after one wear. So I thought, wow, we've gone from having a pretty dull, boring product that stops mold growing on leather, which is a pretty dull kind of application, to something that can stop odors on textiles and leather. And the applications for that are fantastic. So we then approached some of the people we'd already talked to about using Microfresh to stop mold growth on leather in transit, and said, you now have a benefit you can sell to the consumer. So if you're treating your footwear with Microfresh to prevent the growth of mold, you can also say these shoes won't smell. That will give you a massive marketing edge and potentially increase sales, which of course makes all retailers sit up and take notice. I went around most of the retailers that you can think of, M&S, Next, Debenhams, Tesco, John Lewis, Asda, George. Everybody said, we don't sell smelly shoes. About 18 months. And then Next came back around and said, do you know what, Brian, we'll give it a try. So they ran a series of girls' footwear in 2011 with a little Microfresh swing tag. Said contains Microfresh to prevent odors on back to school shoes because they're worn every day. And the two reasons school shoes are generally thrown out is because either the kids grow out of them or they start to smell. So we actually, in the early days, we were actually making their products more sustainable. This is over 10 years ago. They ran the range in 2011. It was so successful. In 2012, they did girls and boys, all the back to school range. And then everybody followed suit from then on, all the other retailers, because we became a standard in the industry. So we went from being a luxury, a nice to have, to a must have. 2014, 15, John Lewis approached us and said, hey, can we get that non-smelling technology in our quilts and pillows? We see that as a potential advantage. Again, because we work with the University of Leicester and they certified it on textiles, which we'd only done it on leather. John Lewis ran some trials, absolutely worked. And they asked us about longevity wash test, which we didn't know, we'd never done it because it's all about leather. And they said, well, there's a product on the market that lasts at least 6 washes. So they tested Microfresh and they came back and said, wow, after 50 washes, it's still over 90% efficacious. After 100 washes, it drops down to about 75, which is now we can advertise it for the useful life of the product. And since then, we've kind of grown. We've got offices all over the world. I'm actually in New York now, looking at our US operation. And as I say, it's his birthday. We're an export champion because all Microfresh is made in Leicester. And we export to 60 countries from Leicester. So we're an export champion. And of course, things like that, when you travel, they give you massive validation. When people don't know who you are, they can see that you are almost certified by the government, that your product and the brand is certified. And that's kind of where we are today, where the lockdown happened, as we all know, COVID, and that brought some new challenges because we then reverted back to getting requests for nasty bacteria. People said, can we have Microfresh surfaces when we reopen? We want in offices, in stores, in universities even. So we've gone from being what I would say a pretty dull anti-mold treatment for leather to today the standard for freshness and health and hygiene in the workplace. So some big companies, some of the big 4 accountants, some of the banks, and if you go into the next store, you'll see protected by Microfresh because we're a recognized brand that will give the customer and the consumer assurance that they are safe in the cleanest environment possible, and without mentioning the word disinfectant or sanitizing. So one of the factors in the Microfresh story is about 2014, we were growing as a business. I'm a chemist that likes people. I am absolutely useless at most other things. People that know me will tell you that. My old headmistress still visits me at the office, and she says, at school, you couldn't do a lot of things. So I had a growing business in 2014, and I didn't know how to run a business. A friend of mine suggested there's a business growth program sponsored by Goldman Sachs. It was a 30-page application form for somebody like me with a very short attention span. That was a nightmare, but I did 2 pages a day for 3 months. If you do the maths, you'll check that it does work out. And ironically, I was at Goldman Sachs New York office yesterday. I did the Goldman Sachs program, which is a fantastic program for growing a business. It's modular. You did 1 day a fortnight at Aston University and at Oxford. And that was instrumental to making our business what it is today. During lockdown, with the horrendous problems with businesses closing, people going on furlough, the government looked at how can we make businesses better and leaner when we come out of this awful pandemic. And they looked at the Goldman Sachs program, and they thought this has got a track record of success. Over 1,700 businesses have been through the Goldman Sachs program. Over 90% of them have scaled or grown and created jobs. So the government now have their own version of the Goldman Sachs program, and it's called Help to Grow. So that's available at business schools all around the country. And what they did is they decided, because we are an international business and a true SME, started by myself, we're still run like an SME. We were chosen to be the flagship the showcase business for the Help to Grow internationalization module. So I think it's module 3, and that's something that we're really proud of. So that module is all based around the growth of Microfresh, how we've scaled internationally, how we've opened our overseas offices, and also the bit that everybody wants to know, the dirty bits, the mistakes we've made. And I've made a lot of mistakes, including just flying off to China and randomly interviewing people almost off the street. But the Help to Grow program is fantastic. It's going really well. It does give CEOs and senior leaders pointers, and it's a very rounded course. It makes you rounded as a person and rounded as a business. And there's research out there and data that shows that if you're a specialist, you are limiting your business, and it's better to have 30, 40, 50% of all the 6 or 7 pillars that you need rather than 90% of one. So that's the Help to Grow program. We're really proud to be part of it. I'm also on the advisory council as the only SME on the council. So they've had feedback from me of what's good and what's not so good for SMEs and SME owners. And I think that's the story.